views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hi, and welcome to Open BXRx, BronxNet special coverage providing you the latest information, resources, services, and community efforts taking place locally here in the Bronx and virtually during the pandemic. I'm your host, Sonyi Lopez, and today is Tuesday, February 2nd. Coming up, we'll learn how CityMD is ready to support the emergency needs of families in Mott Haven and nearby communities with their new Mott Haven location. Then we'll discuss President Biden's 100-day deportation moratorium, what it means to Bronx immigrants, and how the executive order and organization UnLocal recently helped stop the deportation of a local Bronxite. After that, February is Black History Month. Stay tuned to learn how Diken Farmhouse is commemorating through a series of talks this month. And founders of the Anti-Litter Project join us to discuss how they're cleaning up the streets of the South Bronx through community-run volunteer efforts. So please stick around. Open BXRx starts now. Welcome to Open BXRX on BronxNet. I'm your host, Sonyi Lopez, inviting you to get social with us at BronxNet TV on Instagram and Twitter, and BronxNet Community Television on Facebook. CityMD has served multiple communities throughout the Bronx for many years, and with their new latest CityMD location in Mott Haven, they're seeking to support the emergency medical needs of families in Mott Haven and nearby communities with convenient weekday and weekend hours, as well as self-check-in kiosks. Joining us now to share more about this new location is Dr. Katharine Miao, Regional Medical Director at CityMD. Welcome, Doctor. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. To start, can you just tell us a little bit about CityMD and how and when it was founded?
Sure. So CityMD was founded in 2010, and it was actually started by a group of emergency physicians who were interested in bringing good medical care to people who, didn't necessarily need to go to the emergency room. Like, they were looking to sort of be that middle space between people who couldn't get to their primary care doctor, if they, fell down, cut themselves, wrenched their ankle, had an asthma attack. Like, they didn't want these people to sit in the emergency room for, 3, 4, 6 hours waiting to be seen because they were dealing with more acute issues. Right. So they opened up this practice in order to help serve that in between and just sort of be a bridge. And basically, the people who are what we call the walking wounded, people who just needed something in between in a pinch.
Got it. Thank you, Doctor. And here in the South Bronx, we have a CityMD on 3rd Avenue, 149th Street, and the newest location is now on 138th Street in Mott Haven. Can you please share more about this particular location and why it was needed in this neighborhood, especially right now?
Well, right now we know that the southern part of the Bronx is still one of the most underserved parts of New York City. And it was crucially important to us that we continue to expand and grow in areas where we were needed. We, had started at the hub. We have sites at 161st Street. We were making more and more sites down there, but this is sort of a very busy area that we thought would serve a lot of families in that region that wasn't necessarily getting the care and maybe a little bit far from other sites.
Okay. And let's say someone is tuning in right now. What types of services can one get at this particular location?
Well, we do basically, I tell people, anything that's not life or limb threatening. If people come in, they, need a physical or they need x-rays, they have a laceration, they're having problems with their asthma. These things are all things that we can do for them. We do well woman checks. Sometimes like people have, a female issue that they're concerned about and they want someone to take a look. It doesn't necessitate going to the emergency room. Maybe they can't get into their OBGYN. It's a great in-between place to get the care that you need.
Got it. And as we know, Dr. Miao, the demand for COVID-19 testing and urgent care in general has been at an all-time high. We often see lines are really long at many of your locations, City MD. How is City MD ensuring that patients get the care they need when they need it safely, especially during these times?
Well, we've been working very, very hard to keep up the social distancing to make sure we're sanitizing, cleaning all the rooms well between all the patients. And it has been a challenge, frankly, trying to give people the COVID testing that they want and need, and at the same time serving the patients who have acute illnesses. And we've really tried to do is, have the managers out there checking to make sure anyone who's acutely ill is not standing in line. If anyone is looking a little bit ill, that, they'll go out constantly and check and ask people, is anyone sick? Is anyone here, need something urgently done? And we've been working actively to get our online platform going in a better way so that people can come in and, get a queue spot so that they get a text or a call to come in, they can go home and then come back for their testing at a later time in the day. And that has, helped. Technology is a little bit of a challenge for some people. So, our front desk, our managers are working very hard to make sure they sort of bridge that.
Right, got it. And do folks need appointments in order to get testing access here at City MD?
No, I mean, we are walk-in only in the sense that like anyone who, wants a test comes in, puts their name down, tells the manager they're looking for a test. And, usually we can accommodate most people the same day. It might not be at that moment, but, a few hours later in that day, they go home, they, wait around, they get that text and they come back. So it's not, I don't think it's been, necessarily like the smoothest in terms of what we'd like to do. We'd like to be perfect. We like everything, everyone to be able to get everything as soon as they come in the door. With COVID testing, unfortunately, just given the fact that there are so many people who need the test, it's just not possible to treat everyone, test everyone the moment they walk in the door. But, having that online system now, or where you get the text or email alert or the phone call, that helps smooth out the process for a lot of people.
Thank you. And thanks for the transparency as well. I also wanted to ask, Dr. Catalina Vasquez is a Bronx native and also a physician at City MD Mott Haven. Can you please share more about her and the staff at this new location, as well as the importance of having people from the community directly serving the community?
Absolutely. No, I know Dr. Catalina Vasquez very well. We've probably known each other for over 20 years. She's a fantastic emergency medicine physician. She grew up in the Bronx. She went to medical school at Albert Einstein, trained at Albert Einstein, at Long Island Jewish Hospital and Jacobi Medical Center. She's, one of my all-time favorite people. She speaks Spanish very fluently. And, most of our staff at Mott Haven do, because there is such a large Spanish speaking population that it's very important to be able to have both the doctors who speak Spanish as well as the staff who speak, fluent Spanish to overcome a lot of the barriers in communication. And we've really found that, trying to have the staff for the patients makes a world of difference in making sure that they're comfortable with the level of care that they're getting.
Absolutely, 100% agree. So we'll be able to meet Dr. Vasquez when we visit this new location in Mott Haven, and she'll be able to help us in Spanish and English, folks, if you're listening back at home. Another question I have, doctor, is do patients need insurance for appointments of any type or, for walk-in services?
So we take almost all insurances, and if you look at our website at citymd.com, you'll see the list of services as well as our list of insurances. But really, we take almost everything out there. So we take a lot of the managed Medicaids, Medicare, like all the commercial insurances. But I think very few people have been turned away for any reason. That we, for people who are self-pay, we have a means to help people who are self-pay as well. And, for people who are getting COVID testing right now, because of the Federal CARES Act, these people are not being charged for any testing.
Okay, got it. So no insurance, no payment necessary. You can just access the testing for free at City MD with no appointment as well.
Exactly.
Before we go, doctor, can you please share City MD's 7 ways to boost the immune system with our viewers? I know a lot of people are worried, especially, during the flu season, COVID-19 in combination, and it's freezing cold. So we want to take care of our immune systems. If you can help us out with that, please.
Absolutely. No, I mean, I think, these are the things that we hear our mothers, talking to us about, and maybe we sort of ignore them, but, your mom usually is right. And I tell my kids, I'm right because I'm your mom, not because I'm your doctor, because I'm not their doctor. But it's basic things that we kind of take for granted, like getting your flu shot. Even though we haven't seen that much of the flu this year, you don't really want to, pick up flu and get COVID at the same time. Like anything, we do have, starting this vaccination process for COVID in the country has been a slow process, but we have the flu shot readily available. Take it. It's one more, barrier between you and some illness. Good hand washing, making sure you stay hydrated, drinking plenty of fluids, sleeping well. If you want, you can maybe take a multivitamin. You don't have to go crazy with supplements, but making sure you're eating healthy food and just staying away from maybe anything that's too processed, more fresh fruits and vegetables. All these things that you help to help your body will help you, get through this period of time that, of this pandemic.
Yes, thank you so much for the helpful tips. Often we forget, so we need that reassurance from our friendly doctor in the neighborhood to help us out. Dr. Miao, finally, can you please welcome the Bronx to your new location in Mott Haven and provide any contact information, website, phone number, email, all that good stuff?
Yeah, so you can find all of our information on our website at www.citymd.com, and it'll have the hours, the exact address, or email contact if you need to get, send us any information. And we're happy to come and serve you. We're here every single day of the week. We're open Monday through Sunday, and if there's any issues, we ask people, just come in, walk in, we'll take a look.
Right. Thank you. Finally, one more thing. I love to ask all of my guests to just please provide a message to the Bronx community, from your heart to the Bronx.
Absolutely. Well, it's a very, difficult time that we're all in, but I wish everyone in the Bronx, I trained at Albert Einstein myself, and so I've been working in the Bronx for years. And, everyone be well and safe, take care of yourself, wear a mask, be careful, with your older, friends and family members, and help keep them safe. And, we'll all get through this.
Thank you so much, Dr. Miao, for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Dr. Katharine Miao is the regional medical director at CityMD. Again, CityMD's new urgent care Mott Haven location is at 571 East 138th Street, open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. and weekends from 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. You can call 718-571-9421 directly to get in touch. And again, you don't need an appointment to be seen. We'll be right back.
We know that people are dealing with the health crisis, but there's also a lot of food insecurity.
We're giving out healthy food options, and that's what's key here.
If you're a senior, you have a disability, they'll actually deliver meals to you.
The residents are anxious, they're worried, they're scared, they want to be tested.
When things were happening in our community and we couldn't get the help.
There's almost a presumption of criminality that attaches to your skin color.
The site will prioritize those who are at highest risk in the population.
If you feel symptoms and you'd like to visit one of these COVID-19 testing sites here in the Bronx, you may call the State Health Department's hotline.
Important to note about this site is no reservations are needed. This is a walk-in clinic.
A lot of us are out of work and looking for something to do.
We have the machinery and the skills to make large scales of these masks and gowns.
Take care of your people. It's going to go way further than we actually can understand.
Right now, employees like myself are just adjusting to the new reality.
Reporting from BronxNet, this is Trans. Who's most at risk for coronavirus? People over 65, people with underlying medical conditions like heart disease, chronic lung disease, asthma, diabetes, people undergoing cancer treatment, and people with weakened immune systems. What should you do if you or a loved one is at higher risk? Avoid close contact with people. Avoid crowds. Stay home if you can. Wash your hands frequently. Learn more ways to protect yourself and others at coronavirus.gov.
Welcome back. President Joe Biden's 100-day deportation moratorium seeking to protect undocumented immigrants from deportation was recently barred by a federal judge in Texas. What does this mean to Bronx immigrants, and how did the executive order and organization UnLocal recently help stop the unlawful deportation of a local Bronxite? Joining us now to share more is Rebecca Press, legal director at UnLocal, Inc. Welcome, Rebecca. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. For those who are not familiar, can you just tell us about UnLocal and your mission?
Sure. UnLocal is what we like to call a small but mighty organization that combines two critical components of defending immigrant rights. One is access to legal representation, and the other is community education and outreach. So we have and they're on equal footing. They're both equally important, the access to good legal representation, as well as informing communities about what's going on in the world of immigration, how to protect yourself. And so we try to combine both, recognizing that both are very important.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. And as we said in the beginning, President Biden, one of his first official enactions when he became the president was the 100-day deportation moratorium. What does this mean for the undocumented community? What exactly is the deportation moratorium?
Sure. Well, the deportation moratorium, as you said, was meant to be a 100-day pause on removals. Who that impacted would be folks who already have been ordered removed. So they already have a final order of removal for a whole host of reasons. It would prevent their actual deportation. But that was only one component of the memo that was issued. The other component of the memo, which continues to operate in full force, is a reassessment of priorities. So if you may or may not remember, but under the Obama administration, there were very clear priorities, recognizing that the Department of Homeland Security and Immigration Enforcement just simply doesn't have the resources to prioritize all undocumented immigrants. The Obama administration also created a framework through which to prioritize who they should go after. Trump undid that and said, we're going after everyone always. Biden then through this memo is attempting to revisit the priorities and think through, understanding the limited resources, who should the enforcement focus on. That part of the memo remains good law and is set to take effect on February 1st. The 100-day pause on deportations, which is of critical importance, and truly we all know that the removal of someone, it has devastating impact on families and communities. So the 100-day pause, while certainly I wouldn't suggest goes far enough, certainly was a very good start and really, really important. That part of the memo has been enjoined by the federal court judge in Texas. And so for the time being, is not as powerful as we'd hope it to be. I will say that the injunction is only, at this point, is only good for 14 days. And the other really important thing to note is, even before this memo, ICE has always had the authority and the discretion to not deport people. They always have that ability. They always have the ability to release people from detention and to decline to deport. This memo attempted to make it mandatory to revisit that sort of on an agency-wide basis. But even removing this, the legal weight of this memo, they still have the ability to make these exact same decisions in individual cases.
Thank you so much for the background, Rebecca. And we know one of your recent cases involved actually a Bronxite, Javier Castillo Maradiaga. Rebecca, can you tell us more about this particular case and what happened there, in the middle of the 100-day deportation moratorium?
Sure. So Javier has been in this country since he was 7 years old. He was ordered removed when he was 9. This, despite the fact that his parents were at the time living here lawfully and continue to live here lawfully. He, however, was not eligible for the same status that they had and was ordered deported. Fast forward a few years, and he became eligible for DACA, which he applied for and received. In 2019, his DACA status lapsed, and subsequent to that, he had an interaction with the NYPD. That interaction led the NYPD to inappropriately turn him over to ICE. And that was because of the old order of removal, we believe. They turned him over to ICE, where he's been detained ever since. During the length of his detention, as we know, the entire world was deeply affected by the COVID pandemic. As was he, right? And during that time, he was also fighting the criminal charges that were against him. I bring up the pandemic because the pandemic led to a much slower process in the adjudication of the criminal proceeding. His criminal case was dismissed and sealed at the beginning of this year, and he was moved to Louisiana for final removal, essentially, right at the same time that we were transitioning from Trump to Biden. So he was sent from the New York detention facility, where he had spent approximately 14 months, to Louisiana, which is the last place people go before they're sent to their country of origin, just a few days before Biden's inauguration. He was set to be removed on January 22nd, and on January 21st, the new administration signed the memo with the 100-day pause. So the timing of it all was, everything was cut very, very close. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the flights that were scheduled for the 22nd were rescheduled, they were canceled, but then he was put onto another flight for the 25th. So that, and we were not given assurances that he would not be on that flight on the 25th, even though he should be covered by this 100-day pause, because remember, that was before the injunction, right? The injunction just happened yesterday. He's covered by the pause. We were not given assurances that he wouldn't be on the flight. And in fact, he was told repeatedly that he would be on the flight. Mm-hmm. So that's why between the 22nd and Sunday, the 24th, I think it was, we were compelled to organize and engage community and do the rally that we did to get a lot of attention onto his case, because he shouldn't have been on that flight. And ultimately he wasn't on the flight. And he's now since been returned to the New York area.
Got it. And how did UnLocal learn about Javier's case? If you can share, Rebecca.
Sure, absolutely. So UnLocal is part of a collaborative called the Rapid Response Legal Collaborative, which is made up of UnLocal, Make the Road New York, and NYLAG. It's frankly a very small collaborative, and it's meant to provide legal assistance to folks who are post-final order. So individuals who have already been ordered removed and who are at imminent risk of being deported. Through that collaborative, I would be remiss not to mention another component of this. Because of that collaborative, we are known to do this kind of work together with Make the Road and NYLAG. There's another organization in New York called the Immigrant Defense Project, which is a fantastic organization that does a lot of work around the intersection between the criminal legal system and the immigration system. They operate a hotline, and Javier's mother called their hotline. Through that hotline, and because of our work with Rapid Response, IDP referred the case to us, which is how we got involved. And we only became involved, I want to say, about 2.5 weeks ago. So really, really very recently.
Yeah, super important work. And, thank you for sharing that as well. Something else I wanted to ask, I know you mentioned this earlier, Rebecca, in one of the questions, but can the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, aka ICE, act independently regardless of executive orders by the president himself? And could they have wrongfully deported Javier and many others without any repercussions if UnLocal and other organizations hadn't gotten involved?
Sure. It's a great question. I mean, I want to say that the answer is no, that they can't act independently or sort of in violation of executive orders. I think they would say, well, we're not, because the legal question about the legal validity of this memo is still open. What ICE can always do is exercise its discretion in a way that recognizes people's humanity and in a way that recognizes that the work that they do destroys families and destroys communities. So they always can do that, and that's what they should be doing, but they don't do that. Could others have been deported? Of course. I mean, what we learned that not only was Javier not put on this plane to Honduras, but that the whole flight to Honduras was canceled on the 25th. I don't know how many other people were meant to be on that flight, but we feel very fortunate that we played a part in canceling that flight altogether. And certainly, I have absolutely no doubt that there are people who will be wrongfully deported because they don't have the benefit of having a well-connected organization and family support and community support, or they don't have the benefit of having that and sort of the ability to galvanize an entire community around them. And you shouldn't need that to prevent a deportation that is already prevented by the moratorium.
Right. And I want to also bring up that Javier's case isn't an isolated one. Many Bronxites are facing very similar situations and fears. Rebecca, can you please share what their rights are at this moment? I know a lot of people are unsure of what their rights are when it comes to ICE.
Sure, absolutely. So a couple of things to say. First of all, if you or anyone you know has already been ordered removed, I would encourage you to reach out to the Rapid Response Legal Collaborative. And you can find out how to do that by visiting our website, unlocal.org, by visiting Make the Roads website, or by visiting NILAD's website. The people who are at most risk are those who have already been ordered removed. But what to do if ICE comes to your door? The simple answer is, do not open your door. You are under no obligation to allow ICE to enter your home, whether it's an apartment, whether it's a full house. You are under no obligation to allow them in. If they have a warrant, a legally issued warrant by a judge, they will enter your house with or without your permission. So if you do not allow them, if you do not consent to their entry, they will not be able to enter your home. And they need to be able to do that in order to identify either you or another individual in your home who may be undocumented. If ICE does come to your home, I would suggest recording the incident. I would also suggest informing the Immigrant Defense Project hotline, because they keep track of all of this. And as you can see in Javier's case, by communicating with IDP's hotline, Javier's family was able to tap into legal resources, right? And community resources. So if you have an experience like that, I would definitely recommend contacting that hotline and then perhaps you'll be tapped into the larger legal community. But certainly there are also the Brooklyn Defender Services came up with an incredible video series about what to do if ICE comes to your door. And I would absolutely suggest watching those. They are in multiple languages. They're called We Have Rights. I think it's wehaverights.org, and in many, many different languages. And I would suggest that everyone watch them.
Perfect. We'll be sure to share that with the viewers as well. Thank you, Rebecca. And can you also please share the hashtag halt all deportations and hashtag not one more actions, and why the fight is not over, and how people in the community can also help regardless of their immigration status during this time?
Absolutely. The fight is obviously not over, right? We have a district court judge who enjoined this 100-day pause. What that theoretically means is that removals will continue and that nothing has really changed. We are still in the battle for people's lives and for the lives of communities. Not one more refers to not one more deportation. With regards to Javier's specific case, we are, there's legal strategy and there's community engagement strategy, which we're still developing. And to the extent that we do anything more, we will certainly let everyone know. Everyone can follow us on social media, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. But there are always ways to get involved, regardless of lawful status. And I would suggest reaching out to us to find out more about our community education programs. Certainly, we are always wanting and willing to do more education and more outreach. And there are other community-based organizations across the city. If there's one thing New York doesn't lack, it's immigrants and community-based organizations. Yes. So there are ways to tap in.
Thank you, Rebecca. And just how can folks get in touch with UnLocal, learn more about any resources and immigration assistance, any numbers or websites that you can provide, please?
Sure, absolutely. Our website is unlocal.org. That's UNLOCAL.org. And our phone number is 646-216-8210. And we're obviously all over social media, so please visit us.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for your time today. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Rebecca Press is the legal director at UnLocal Inc. And we also want to share those numbers. If you have any immigration concerns, you can call UnLocal's main number at 646-216-8210 or their hotline at 212-946-0351. You can also visit unlocal.org to find out more. We'll be right back. This February, we celebrate Black History Month, and Diken Farmhouse invites us to join a 6-week series of talks to learn about several unique New York Black experiences. Joining us now to share more are Meredith Sorin-Horsford, Executive Director at Diken Farmhouse, and Dr. Gretchen Sorin, Director of Cooperstown Graduate Program, and also the author of the book Driving While Black, African American Travel and the Road to Civil Rights, and co-producer of the documentary film on PBS, Driving While Black, Race, Space, and Mobility in America. Welcome, ladies. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. Meredith, you've joined us before on the show, but just for our viewers who are just tuning in, can you tell us a little bit about Diken Farmhouse?
Sure. The Diken Farmhouse Museum is an 18th century farmhouse. It was on approximately 250 acres of farmland in what was then very rural New York State. And today we are part of Inwood, part of New York City, in the northernmost neighborhood of Manhattan. We're the last remaining farmhouse in Manhattan.
Thank you, Meredith. And can you share more about how Diken Farmhouse is kicking off Black History Month through your series of talks talking about race matters?
Sure. So we did this lecture series for the first time in August during the heart of the pandemic. And we really felt like it was an important time to talk about not only the history, which we do all of the time at the Diken Farmhouse Museum, but also how the history of race really relates to where we are today as a nation. So we did that in August, and we really felt that it was important and created such a great dialogue that we wanted to do a second iteration of the lecture series and, of course, kick it off for Black History Month.
And the first of the series, Unearthing New York City's Forgotten Past, will be taking place tomorrow, February 3rd. What will this talk entail?
So we are working with Herbert Signoret, who works for CUNY, and he also works for the institute that is doing additional research on Seneca Village. He is going to be talking with us about not just what they already know about Seneca Village, this 1820s free Black settlement in the area where now Central Park sits. But he's also going to be talking about the fact that they're continuing to conduct research on this settlement, on this community, and something that they're continuing to talk about and bring awareness to. So I'm really looking forward to hearing more about that.
So folks who participate can also see archival footage and photographs and things of that nature through the virtual realm that we're watching this.
Yes, he has some great images showing, where exactly in the 80s between 7th and 8th Avenue, Seneca Village existed in the 1800s. And then, talking about what was there. We know that there were Black churches. We know that this was a whole community that in the 1850s, the city of New York just decided to basically take it over through eminent domain and kind of evicted all of its residents just to create a beautiful park.
Oh my gosh, that is riveting information. You don't want to miss it. It starts tomorrow, folks, February 3rd. Go to dikenfarmhouse.org, is it, Meredith?
Yes, you got it.
Find out more. As we've learned, the Diken Farmhouse has a history of slavery. Gretchen, you will be exploring this history in a talk called Generations of Slavery on the Dyckman Property. Can you tell us more about this talk and what people can expect to learn?
Well, one of the things that's pretty exciting is that the Diken Farmhouse has hired this amazing historian who has been really digging into all of the 18th century records about slavery in Manhattan. And he has developed a wonderful report that really it identifies some of the enslaved people who worked on the Diken Farmhouse by name, which I think is wonderful. And if you think about Upper Manhattan and what it must have been like in the 17th and 18th centuries, it was from river to river, it was farmland. It was, it had to be tilled with animals. There were no machines at that point. And so it really took a lot of hard individual human labor in order to produce the fruits and vegetables that were produced there. And so the people that lived in what's now Inwood would have had enslaved people to help them with that farm work. So this project has basically made those invisible people visible.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. And, you know, the piece of history that we have with Diken Farmhouse still standing there in Inwood is incredible. So folks that see it and say, whoa, this looks like it doesn't belong in the middle of Inwood, but it absolutely doesn't. It's part of the history of that area. Can you share what other topics will be explored throughout the series and what else folks can expect?
Sure. As you mentioned, it's a 6-week-long series. So we're starting off with talking about Seneca Village. Then next, we're going to be talking about the Dyckman Oval, which was a baseball field uptown where predominantly the Negro Leagues would play. And I think it's a topic that probably not a lot of people know that much about. We'll also be talking about Zora Neale Hurston and Pora Beaupre, who brought kind of Black and Latinx folk culture to New York City. We'll also be talking about slavery at Sylvester Manor, which is another farm out on Shelter Island. That'll be a really exciting topic and a place that I've really wanted to visit. And then we'll also be talking about jazz and dance in Harlem. So and then of course, as you already heard, the last one of the series to really wrap it up is the history of enslaved people at the Diken Farmhouse Museum.
Got it. And for anyone tuning in, how can they find out about this series and all of the events that are happening? Where can they register, Meredith?
Sure. Yes, please sign up. You can go to our website, which is dykmanfarmhouse.org, and you'll find all of the information to register. It is a free program. We just ask that people register so that they can get the link to join.
And I also wanted to mention Dyckman Discovered, an initiative that the Dyckman Farmhouse also started. What is it and how can people access it?
Sure. So we got a grant from the New York Community Trust to hire the historian that we were just talking about to do extensive research on the people that were enslaved on the Dyckman farm, who we knew very little about before this project. So through this project, we have found out a few names of some of the people who were enslaved on the property, like Francis Cujo, and then a few first names of some other people that were enslaved on the property, and also free people that were living on the property in the 1800s. So this information can be found also on our website. There's a tab on dykmanfarmhouse.org that's called Dyckman Discovered.
And Dr. Sorin, I know you like to be called Gretchen. I saw one of your interviews, so I'm calling you Gretchen in this interview. But I wanted to bring up your book, Driving While Black, African-American Travel and the Road to Civil Rights. And of course, the PBS special based on it is a powerful exploration of the mobility and freedom of African-Americans and how it exposed them to discrimination and deadly violence. Can you share more about these, the book and also the PBS series, and how folks can tune in this Black History Month and anytime, really?
Well, the book is really about mobility. It's about how when people of color first came to the United States, or what was then the colonies, their mobility was restricted, and that mobility has continued to be restricted. And I think one of the most important things about the book, about the story, is that we can see in this story how we got to where we are today. And we can see how the relationship between African Americans and people of color and law enforcement, how it was formed historically and how it persists until the present day.
And that's available online for folks to watch, and the book is also available online?
So the documentary is available online at pbs.org, and the book, Driving While Black, African American Travel and the Road to Civil Rights, I tell people, it's certainly available on Amazon, but I tell people it's great to go to your independent book dealer, especially if it's a Black-owned business or Latino-owned business, and give them the business, and you can get the book that way. It's just come out in paperback, so it's inexpensive, and I hope it's a good read.
I'm sure it's at the Lit Bar here in the Bronx, our only independent bookstore here in the Bronx, in the South Bronx. So folks, check it out over there. Support your independent bookstore, Black owned as well.
I think also it might be at Sisters Uptown Books as well, also Black owned.
Sisters, all right, plug in. Yes, Sisters Uptown Books and the Lit Bar, y'all. So it's available locally. Thank you so much for sharing. Finally, again, just to help people keep in touch, how can they learn more, register as well for the Talking About Race Matters, and please invite them to the first of the series tomorrow.
Wonderful. So as I mentioned earlier, all of the information for the lecture series is available on our website, which is dykmanfarmhouse.org. So this series will take place every Wednesday night throughout the entire month of February and the first 2 Wednesdays in March at 6 p.m. So please follow us on social media. We'll be posting about it all of the time. Please register for the lecture series, and we hope to see you there.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Meredith. Thank you, Gretchen, for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Again, folks, Talking About Race Matters launches tomorrow, February 3rd at 6 p.m. To join the conversation, you can register online at dykmanfarmhouse.org. You can also follow at Dyken Farmhouse on social media to see the rest of the events taking place weekly on Wednesdays through March 10th. We'll be right back. For the last 26 years, Dominguez Experts Martial Arts, located at 283 East 204th Street in the Bronx, has offered training for all ages. The school is run by Master Leandro Dominguez, a Dominican martial artist with over 40 years of experience. Dominguez first opened his school in 1994 and has taught thousands of youth hailing from the Bronx and beyond ever since.
I think this is really, really good for the kids because really mentally, it works for them. I see that most of the students that come to this school, or not only this one, but I think that martial art is really important for the kids because when they go to college, they have another way of seeing things.
Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, Dema has experienced a tremendous loss of income. In an effort to save it, Master Dominguez held classes at Moshulu Parkway during the summer. However, that didn't last long with frigid temperatures. As a result, volunteers like Bronx parent Judith created a GoFundMe to raise funds in hopes of saving the school.
The parents amongst ourselves wanted to help, but it just wasn't enough. And I knew that someone had to take the reins and try to do something. So I did start a GoFundMe. First one I've never even tried before, but we did have a lot of children give whatever money they could. Some great neighbors were helpful, but unfortunately it wasn't enough, and it continues to add up now that the school is open, and unfortunately a lot of kids aren't coming to class because their parents are still afraid, of course, and it'll take some time, but I would like to see the school stay open so that when the parents and the children are ready to come back, this door can remain open.
Dominguez learned the arts through Grandmaster Jun Rhee, who introduced Taekwondo to the United States in the 1950s and trained the likes of Bruce Lee and Muhammad Ali. Today, Dominguez emulates his teacher through his own philosophy while improving the physical, mental, and emotional abilities of his students and providing a safe space to Bronx youth through the art of Taekwondo.
This is like a second home. Everyone needs another family, another place to come to learn to build themselves and build their future in a positive way, not only physically but mentally. This also builds a lot of confidence and brings you to another place where you feel comfortable.
Dema was ineligible for a PPP loan due to not having a set payroll. Graduating students returned to voluntarily train newcomers. And through the years, Dominguez has upkept the school using his own funds. Parents say that he's also helped his students attend classes despite their inabilities to pay.
We opened this school in 1994, and basically for the community.
As a mother here, to see how it has affected him and how it's helped his successes, I would love to see the school remain just for other children and other parents to experience the same thing that he's experienced.
Dominguez Experts Martial Arts continues to offer a variety of safe, socially distanced classes for any skill level, ages 5 and up. To learn more and register, you can contact Dema at 718-654-1430 or demastudiobx@gmail.com. Also, follow them on social media at Dema Studios BX. Reporting for BronxNet, Sonyi Lopez. Welcome back. Trash and sanitation has been an issue many Bronx residents deal with on a daily basis. And throughout the pandemic, littering has appeared to double in our streets. In response, the Anti-Litter Project, a community-based volunteer-driven program, seeks to clean up the streets of the South Bronx. Joining us now to share more are co-founders of the Anti-Litter Project, Jennifer Seda and Dexter Thomas Payne. Welcome. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
For real,
Of
thank you.
course. No, it's
Even
a pleasure to
virtually.
have you. For sure. So first to start off, for people who are not familiar, can you tell us more about the Anti-Litter Project and your mission?
Sure. You want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I wrote a whole thing a while ago, but it's been a while. But our mission is basically to reduce the litter that lines the streets of the South Bronx, to inspire, to motivate, and to organize people who live in the community. We are based in the South Bronx, but we're targeting the whole borough if we can. We want to polarize people and show them that if we work together, we can maybe put a dent in this problem. And it's very possible. It's very possible.
Got you. Sounds really amazing. And how did each of you decide to pursue this venture? What made you both do this?
So I would say for me, it was honestly following people like Loving the Bronx, that organization. She's been cleaning up the Bronx since 2010, also Feeding the Bronx. The movement, The Bronx Needs Cleaning, that did Sunday cleanups weekly in the summer in the pandemic. I was really inspired by his movement. It's a teacher named Eli. So, and we started this summer, we started outside of our apartment. And so seeing those role models for them to be able to do it really influenced me, like, you know, let me do it too.
I love that so much. And did you have to share something as well, Dexter?
Yeah. We live in Melrose, which I think is a lovely area. But it just turned out that the litter problem was kind of overwhelming. And for a while, you know, I can't lie, I was a little complacent. But once we realized that we could do something about it, my roommate, who we live with, his name is Nelio, great guy. He one day was outside sweeping up at like 7 a.m. And I literally said, I was like, yo, I had the same idea, but yeah, you beat me to it. So the next day I took a turn, and then one day she took a turn, and then we kind of came together and we're like, yo, what if we did this all at the same time? Maybe it will make a difference.
I love that. And I'm curious, have neighbors been like, what y'all doing? Like, do you work at the city? Like, what's going on?
There was a couple of days where people would come out and they'd be like, oh, I heard people were sweeping outside. I had to see it for myself. Yeah, legit. And we would have, you know, busty brooms and crusty dustpans, you know, but it was humble beginnings. And it was so cool to see people, you know, at any time of the day come up and like literally thank us and say like, I'm so happy that somebody's doing it, you know?
I love that. And, you know, when we talk about the COVID-19 pandemic, I kind of said it in the beginning, it seems like littering has kind of doubled during the pandemic. How has the COVID-19 pandemic impacted sanitation in our borough from your point of view?
It's rough. I'm sure as people know, if they don't know, sanitation had a huge cut. How much was it?
$100 million
$100 million cut. Yeah. And I mean, of course, things are not as popping. The city needs money. They have to cut funds from somewhere. But when sanitation goes, all that means is everything else goes up. Trash, quality of life issues, rodent infestations, other problems like that. And litter is a product of living in such a dense city. You know, New York City is great. But 8 million people, 1 million people live in the Bronx alone. So imagine those numbers when they cut your trash pickups in half. So COVID-19 affected us all. And I'm glad we're still here being resilient. But I think sanitation got hit hard, and we saw it. We saw it a lot, especially in the summer, because once it got warm, everybody wanted to be outside because of the lockdowns and stuff. And then all the protests, because people deserve to speak their minds and tell people how they feel. And it just added to the litter problem. And it's an ongoing thing. It's an ongoing thing.
So it's just so many overflowing garbage cans, just garbage not being picked up. So it's really just emphasized everything. Amplified.
That's very true. I also wanted to discuss the importance of education on anti-littering and caring for the environment. Because, you know, we can organize community cleanups, we can have anti-litter project out here doing the work, but we also need people to understand where these issues are coming from and how they're also fueling these issues. Just talk to me about the importance of education as well in our streets.
Definitely. I would say in the city, in the Bronx, we have the luxury of not thinking about our trash. We don't ever think about where it's going or how it affects the environment. Research has shown not only the environment, but our health and our hygiene. when sanitation is not picked up, the diseases go up, the death goes up. This improperly disposed trash ends up in the sewage drains and they get clogged, or they end up in the rivers, and it affects the ecosystem really.
It does.
This litter, it emits, greenhouse gases, methane, which is bad for the ozone layer, and it's so many. We realize it's a multi-layered, problem, and it's just the education factor is tough because it forces people to look inward. It forces people to be responsible and accountable. And there's not a lot of accountability in this country. I don't know if you've noticed. Especially in the city. There's not a lot of that. And it's wild because when we ask people to be responsible, that's how we see results. When we ask people can you be in charge of this garden, or can you be in charge of this block? If you see an overfilling trash can I depend on you to call 311? And once they kind of are consistent, the change is almost overnight.
Word.
It's
That's
just
very true.
I'm sorry. It's just definitely just the lack of education.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when we first started, we didn't have no education on it. We're like, what do we do? Like, we picked up all this trash, but what do we do with it now? Like, we can't just put it by the litter basket. So it's just definitely just to give people empowerment to know like what to do in these type of situations. Yeah, I like your point about education, because education is long term. What we're doing is also long term, but education sticks. If we can give people the values, then the rest will be easy.
Absolutely. And on the same vein, how are you both seeking to engage the community in the movement?
Well, luckily, summer is almost here. So once it gets warm, we want to capitalize on that. And we got a late start. We started in about August, September of 2020, but it was a great run, and we're still active in the community. We want to engage people by inviting them into our spaces. We operate and run with the association of other groups. We run 3 community gardens in the Bronx, and we're in the process of revitalizing them, rehabilitating them, turning them from abandoned plots back into functioning gardens. And we want to invite the community. Come on through. According to the Parks Department, we have to be open for 20 hours a week. We want to be open for 30 hours a week. We want to encourage people to come by, and once they're there, we can start the dialogue. Maybe we'll clean, maybe we'll just talk and get to know people. But we want to show people that we're welcoming the community in. No judgment, no pressure. We want to see people, and we want them to, come see us. And we provide snacks, we provide beverages, we provide everything you'll need. Tools, everything, gloves, just come,
And let's say someone is tuning in right now, they want to know where they can meet you guys. Where do you usually meet, and what are the times, or do you have a set schedule that you post on social media or something that we can check out?
I don't remember the addresses of all of them, but I can tell you there's one.
It's 75 Jetting
There
Street.
There it is.
Our next cleanup will be there January 31st at 11 a.m. And they can follow any updates on Instagram at Anti-Litter Project.
Got you. I think by the time this airs, it's going to be a little too late, but they can learn about the next cleanup, and that's all good. Just follow Anti-Litter Project on Anti-Litter Project on social media. Something else I wanted to ask you guys also is to share your hopes for a cleaner Bronx. How can we get there collectively? How can we do this work together?
It would be great if, the plastic ban is in effect. So, you can't get a plastic bag from whatever. I have this sci-fi kind of vision where, we hold McDonald's accountable. If you want that, that sandwich, it might cost you an extra 75 cents. Why? Because of a littering fee, something that McDonald's now has to pay, because every time, how many McDonald's cups I've picked up in the last couple of months? Every time you see that product, imagine if the company got fined. Again, it's a dream, it's a hope. But more realistically, what we want to do is just show people that, we don't want to be the bad guys. We don't want to come and show people you're doing it wrong. We want to provide solutions. We want to show up and roll up with brooms, with dustpans, with people, with gloves, with masks. We want to show them that if you have a problem, we can come and we can help you. And I think it can be a lot easier when we do it together. Not to be corny, but it's true.
I agree with that. And another thing that you guys have is a podcast. Can you tell us about the Trash Talk podcast and what?
It's her idea.
Tell me all about it, Jennifer.
So I really wanted, when we talk about climate change and the environment, I feel like they seem like big, topics that are I don't know where to start. I don't know what to talk about. So this is more honestly, a talk between us friends, talking about our origin story, how it all started, the history of trash, and just we're gonna bring on more guests so we could talk about their experience with litter in the city. So it's just really just more informal talk about environmental stuff.
Very, very informal. We wanted a place to vent, and then we realized we're not alone. There's groups in Astoria, there's groups in Hell's Kitchen, there's groups in Bushwick, there's a group in Miami that we follow, and it's just there's people all over the place, and we want to give them a platform to come and share your journey with us. You know, maybe we can spark an interest, an inspiration in each other too.
Oh, it sounds really interesting. Where can people check it out? Where is it available?
Spotify,
Anchor,
the Anchor
Apple,
app, Apple Music.
Google.
It's called Trash Talk. There's a lot of trash talks, but Trash Talk by the Anti-Litter Project.
And the link will be in our bio on social media.
I love it. And I love that name too. And just, you know, the aim and the mission behind it as well, and what you guys are doing in just totality. So thank you for everything, you know, really. Another thing I'm curious about is how much garbage do you think you pick up on the regular, and where does it go after you pick it up?
It's a great question. That's a great question. We stopped counting a while ago. We meant to get a scale and measure it in pounds.
That's the next step.
But I gotta say, in a couple months we did it. It was at least probably hundreds of bags of garbage. Well, somewhere between 500 and 1,000, just bags of garbage. And where does it go is also interesting, because we had to learn that ourselves. Once you pick up all this litter off the sidewalk, you can't just put it by a trash can. You can't just dump it off somewhere, because that's just restarting the cycle of problems. So we had to get in contact with sanitation. Jen hooked us up great. Was able to contact people and get in touch with sanitation, and we added some spots to the garbage route. So they have their routes, and then they can stop by on Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever day it is, to come get the litter that we then just accumulated and picked up.
Wow.
So
it's just all about communicating with Department of Sanitation so we can help each other, because this city will not run without them.
Nope.
Right. And, you know, look at what community organizing does too. Like, we're helping each other. You guys are helping them in order to make it happen. Like you said, there's a level of accountability for both the Department of Sanitation and also the people of the Bronx. Exactly. So let's just work together in order to make things happen. Thank you guys again. Before we go, just invite the community to join you in community cleanups. I know that the next one actually just passed. This is airing on the 2nd of February. So anything coming up, and, you know, how to stay connected with you guys.
Okay.
So our February cleanup will be February 21st, and it'll be with the Hell's Kitchen Trash Queen. Litter NYC, litter_NYC, February 21st. And you can follow us on social media on IG at Anti-Litter Project.
Yes. It's cold right now. Once it gets hot, we'll have a lot more. Stay tuned for updates. We want to hear from you. We want to work with you, and we're excited. We're looking forward to it.
All right. Thank you, Jennifer and Dexter, for your time today, you know, for sharing more about the Anti-Litter Project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course. Again, folks, you can follow at Anti-Litter Project on social media to learn more about their volunteer efforts and more information. You can also DM them. They're very responsive via Instagram. Also, tune into their Trash Talk podcast on Spotify. That's all for our show today. I'm your host, Sonyi Lopez, wishing you and your family safety and wellness now and always. Take care.